Today we're going to talk about lesson 94. I'm going to start with example 1. Jim is 5 years older than Allie. Allie is 2 years younger than Bianca. Bianca is 9 years old. How old is Jim? So right now we only know one thing for sure. Okay? Bianca is 9 years old. Everything else that we're told we'll have to figure out. So, for example, when it says Jim's 5 years older than Allie, we don't know Jim's age. We have to figure that out. Right now, we don't know Allie's age either because it says Allie's 2 years younger than Bianca. So we need to start with Bianca because we do know how old she is. So if Bianca is 9, then Jim is not related to Bianca at all right now. It says he's 5 years older than Allie. So Jim, we have to save for later. We'll have to figure out what Allie's age is first. It says Allie is 2 years younger than Bianca. 2 years younger. So we're going to take 9 minus 2. And that will give me 7. So Allie is 7. Now we can go and figure out how old Jim is. I'll read it again. Jim's 5 years older than Allie. 5 years older than 7. So we're going to add 5 onto this, and we get 12. So we just answered the question, how old is Jim? Jim is 12 years old. Okay, make sure you have your labels too because it's a word problem. Example 2. Yvonne paid for 5 pounds of apples with a $10 bill. His change was $6. What was the cost of each pound of apples? So again, in this problem, we're going to have to do a couple steps to figure out an answer for this question. So right now, what we know is that Yvonne paid for these apples, and he used a $10 bill. Okay. His change was $6. So what he got back was $6 in the end. So how much did it cost for all of those apples? Well, 10 minus 4 is 6. Or you can think 10 minus 6 is 4, okay? So we know that this is how much the 5 pounds of apples was worth. Okay, $4. So the question asks us what was the cost of each pound of apples. Right now it's $4 for the 5 pounds. So if you have $4, you're going to need to split that up into 5 separate pounds because we bought 5 pounds worth. So here's a pound, and so forth. Now we can't split $4 in our head easily, so we are going to need to set up a long division problem. We're going to start with $4 and we're going to split it or divide it into 5. So I'm going to erase this. Okay. So I'm going to take my $4 and we are splitting or dividing into 5 parts since there were 5 pounds of apples. First thing I like to do is put my label and my decimal point. I do not want to forget that. Now, how many times can 5 go into 4? 0 times. If you want to follow through with this, you can take 0 times 5, which is 0, subtract, and you'll get 4. Okay? Then we bring down this 0. Now we have 40. 5 goes into 40 exactly 8 times. 8 times 5 is 40. Subtract to get 0. Bring down this 0. 5 goes into 0. 0 times 5 is 0. Subtract and I get 0 again. There's nothing else to bring down, so that means I'm done. Now that means that each pound of apples was 80 cents. Pretty cheap. Example 3. One of the foods that Marabella feeds her pet rabbit is 2 ounces of lettuce each day. In how many days does her rabbit eat a pound of lettuce? How many pounds of lettuce does the rabbit eat in 4 months? So this question here has 2 problems, actually, or 2 questions. So the first question they're wondering is how many days will it take for this rabbit to eat a whole pound of lettuce? We know that in a day, he will eat 2 ounces. The next day, it will eat another 2 ounces, and so forth. So if we keep going and we keep counting up each day, we will be able to figure out how many days it'll take to reach a pound. Now over here I put that a pound is equal to 16 ounces, just as a reminder. So if every day is 2 ounces, we can either count up the days by going 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. So that would take us about 8 days. There's another way to do it too. So if this is our total that we want 16 ounces. I can divide that by 2 because each equal group is 2 ounces. So I can just divide that into 2. We know that 16 divided by 2 is 8. So it will take 8 days. Now that answers the first question. We haven't answered the second question yet. The second question asks us how many pounds of lettuce does the rabbit eat in 4 months? Now this question's kind of tricky because we don't know which months they're asking about. So if I were the person who have written this question, I would have said about how many pounds does the rabbit eat? Because not each month has the same amount of days. But on average, we can say that there's 30 days, okay? Just to make life easier for us. So in 1 month, we'll say there's 30 days, okay? And if we have 4 months, how many days is that? Well, we take 30 and 30 and 30 and 30. So 30 4 times in a row, which I can just multiply times 4. Okay, 30 times 4 is 120. So, we know there's 120 days. We're trying to figure out how many pounds that this rabbit will eat. Well, in the first question, we figured that it'll take 8 days to eat 1 pound. Okay. So if we have 120 days, there's going to be more pounds eaten than there was in just 8 days. So I'm going to take 120 divided by 8. Okay. 8 does not go into 1, so I'm going to put a 0 there, or you can just skip it. 8 goes into 12 once. 8 times 1 is 8. 12 minus 8 is 4. Bring down this 0. 8 goes into 40 5 times. 5 times 8 is 40. Subtract and get 0. Nothing else to bring down. So we're done. So, in those 120 days, when we split them up into 8 days, that was actually splitting it up into pounds. Okay? So we have 15 pounds that this rabbit will be able to eat in about 4 months. Example 4. Point B represents which number on this number line? So in some cases, you'll have a 2-step problem to do, and it's not a word problem. Like in this problem, we're having to deal with a number line. And there's one way that we've been used to trying with number lines where we just guess and check to see what each interval is. But there's actually another way that you can do it using math or adding, subtracting, dividing, multiplying, that kind of thing. So the only 2 points I am given right now is 100, 200, and then 0. So I'm going to deal with this 100 and 200 since that's where my A, B, and C are. So I'm going to take where this point is, which is 200, and I'm going to subtract with where A is. So A is 100. Now the reason I'm doing that is because these are the 2 numbers that are next to each other that are actually labeled. There's nothing else in between here that's labeled. So I want to find the difference between 100 and 200. You might know this in your head, and I hope you do, but if you don't, the difference between 200 and 100 when you subtract is 100. Okay? And then we can figure out how many parts are in between this 100 and 200. So from this line to this line, that's a part. This line to this line, there's another part. And keep going. So I see that there's 1, 2, 3, 4 equal parts between 100 and 200. Okay? We are not counting the line, so it's not 1, 2, 3 parts. We're counting the spaces in between. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 equal parts. So I can split this 100 into 4 equal parts. You can do this by thinking in your head, what is something common that we use that is equal to 100 that we can divide into 4 equal parts? I like to think of quarters. $1 is worth 100 cents. 4 quarters is equal to $1, and a quarter is equal to 25 cents. But if you aren't so sure, you can actually divide this. 100 divided by 4. 4 goes into 10 twice. 2 times 4 is 8. When I subtract, I get 2. Bring down this 0. 4 goes into 20 5 times. 5 times 4 is 20. Subtract to get 0, and there's nothing left to bring down. So we were right to think to use quarters. So that means for every time you jump, that's another 25. Okay, but you have to add on to the previous number. So 100 plus a 25 is 125. If you add another 25, if you think of quarters, 25, 50, 75, 100. So this is now 150. 50 plus another 25 is 175. And just to double check, 175 plus 25 is 200. Okay, so B is represented by 175. That's our answer there. Example 5. If y equals 2x plus 1, then what is y when x equals 3? So when we're given a problem that involves a y and an x like this, y equals 2x plus 1. This example or this problem set up tells us that y is equal to this if we know what x is. Hello, Jerry. So we can figure out y only if we know what x is. And luckily in our problem, it does tell us that x is equal to 3. So we can plug this 3 into x right there, okay? So when we see a 2x like this, or any number, it could be 5x, 10x, that always means that we're multiplying this number times whatever that variable is, okay, or that unknown number. So that means that when we rewrite this, we're saying that y is equal to 2 times x, which is 3. Then we can add 1. We know that we need to multiply before we add, okay? 2 times 3 is 6. I still have to add 1. I'm going to rewrite that. I like to do just one step at a time. It keeps us organized, and I can see your mistakes if you're to make any, okay? So just take it one step at a time. 6 plus 1 is 7. Okay, so now we know that y is equal to 7.